So do we have a quorum? Are we ready to roll?
Yeah, I think we go ahead and start.
Okay, and feedback is definitely appreciated. I'm sitting down here in Savannah, Georgia in a kitchen by myself, so any and all questions, please interrupt. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm sitting here talking to myself in front of my laptop. All right, so I gave this talk at DefCon 2019 and some of the local BSides. I'm giving this in a couple of weeks to Tampa BSides. I gave this over at NATO headquarters to some of the commanders over there. The title of this is called Broken Arrow. That comes to the military term during the Vietnam War that if a U.S. force, ground force, found themselves overrun, they'd say broken arrow, and any and all forces in the area, air, ground, would come to the assistance to help the people on the ground that are embattled. And applying that to the domestic front, what happens when the enemy's inside the perimeter? What happens when it's a domestic abuse situation? They come to us for assistance. Previously, people would come to us as information security, computer science engineers. You know, can you help me build a new system? Can you help me build a gaming system? Can you help me install my Wi-Fi? Can you help me get my web page up, my e-commerce store? Those changes we've noted, talked to a lot of people, have turned into fix my desktop has become fix my situation. My ex knows where I am. He's always stalking me. She knows what I'm doing. She knows what I'm buying. They're always there. What can you do to help me? You're in information security. Can you please help me with this? And generally in this field, we're driven to do something, whether it's, you know, at least go to this website, go to this URL, or I've got the time, I've got the bandwidth, I have the cycles. Let me do something a little bit more for you than just listen. A couple of great resources out there right away, goaskrose.com, safeescape.org. Those are founded by Chris Cox. Ray and I work together as volunteers for these organizations. It's a huge network to provide domestic abuse victims the means to escape their abusers, as well as to figure out if they are being stalked technically, how we can get them free of the abuse, how we can get them free of the stalk if they've been hacked, and how to get them off the X. If you want to volunteer, or if you need help, it's a simple address, help@safeescape.org. A good book that covers some of this is A Smart Girl's Guide to Privacy. So skipping the introduction, I'm Will Baggett, former CIA, currently trained NATO SOF over in Belgium, Special Ops Forces. I'm also working with Revolutionary Security out of Bluebell, Pennsylvania, near somewhat where y'all are right now. And I'm doing digital forensic incident response. For this talk, though, we want to keep that data confidentiality, availability, and integrity triad together. You know, this is something that's a hallmark of every report we write, every investigation. And for this realm, I've changed it a little bit to control the environment, identity theft, and data availability. So you still have the CIE triad, it's just in a little bit different shape. Out of these three things to keep in mind when dealing with an abuse victim in the technical realm, the most important thing, though, is to control the environment. If you don't control your immediate environment, it doesn't matter what happens with your phone, your laptop, your router, if you're physically in danger. So controlling the environment breaks down to three more areas: personal security, data security, and family disclosures. First and foremost, if you're not safe, you've got to get off the X. Get away from the danger, get away from the abuse. The data security comes second. After your physical being is safe, your family is safe, then we can worry about changing the password, seeing where the data is breached, seeing what's left behind. And also the family disclosures, because it doesn't do you any good to have this amazing amount of operational security technically if your family's still posting, Jane used to live in Bluebell, but now she's in Plymouth at a new apartment, but don't tell anybody. The number of people who put on Facebook, Jim is being deployed at Afghanistan, but don't tell anyone, but it's publicly on Facebook. These are the family disclosures. People mean well, but they've inadvertently blown the best laid plans of trying to be safe online. We had a personal meeting that went bad a few years back, And as we were doing the postmortem for the meeting analysis, the station chief said no bad situation ever got better by sticking around. That applies here as well. Things aren't going well. If you're talking to somebody and, well, he only hit me this one time, she only did this one time, it's not going to get better. Go ahead, get off the X, get out of danger, and go on. When I talked to the group at BSides Detroit, I made a Calvin Johnson and Detroit Lions reference here. It's not going to get better. I might as well leave. I could say the same thing for Antonio Brown, but I think he got better once he left the team. One of the founders up at Revolutionary Security had a similar take on this as I was going over the talk with him. You don't have to ask permission to leave a dangerous situation. When he was working with the Navy, somebody didn't want to submit a taxi expense for leaving a drunken situation where someone's drunk, belligerent, abusive, but they stayed because it would have been above and beyond the normal expense report. And Jim told us, and now sharing this with you, that you don't have to ask permission to leave. No one's going to fault you for leaving a bad situation, whether it's professional, whether it's a classroom, or whether it's professional. I walked into a classroom at Georgia Tech one time. The professor was teaching calculus, speaking into the whiteboard, writing and erasing at the same time. I sat down, stood up, left, knowing that there's no way I'm going to get anything more than a D out of the class, and it's going to be a waste of time. Immediately got out of there, got somewhere better, got a C, but it's better than D, and I didn't have to retake it. So getting off the X, planning to get out of danger, you want to have a bug out bag. So for the 6 of you there, are you familiar with the term bug out bag? Yes? Okay. But the rest of you, a bug out bag is you want to have a bag with your driver's license, passport, social security card, ID card, credit cards if you can. Yes, go bag, exactly. Your electronics, and I mean all of your electronics you can possibly take. And the one thing to consider, is there stalkerware on these devices? And would you know if there's stalkerware? With Operation Safe Escape, we're seeing that some people do have stalkerware installed by the spouse on their device. There are ways around that, and I'll teach you later on in this talk how to mitigate that. If it's possible, we've worked with people to have prepaid cell phones, prepaid credit cards stored somewhere off-site. One veterinarian assistant, she was able to keep these records stored in the safe in her office because breaking into the car to steal these records is one thing. Breaking into a vet's office and then breaking into the medicine safe, that's a different level of response from the police. You're going to be much more secure keeping it somewhere like that if you can. So we've talked a little bit about what to do if the person needs to leave. Well, what if the abuser leaves the situation? First things first, and these paths will come back together for the same, what if they leave, what if you leave? If they leave, the first thing you want to do is change the locks and the codes to your doors. So whether you're calling the locksmith, whether you're calling apartment management, condo management, what have you, and changing the garage door codes, as you make that call, as you're coming to physically change the hardwired locks, you've got time to get to your router, change your passwords, and go from there. But first and foremost, you want to change your locks. The police are going to respond to breaking and entering instead of, well, he came back in and I don't want him here. It's, again, a different response time. One of the neighbors in Tigakay, South Carolina, after she and her husband divorced, she was doing the same thing. She went out to the garage door panel on the outside of the house. Outside of the door, the code was pre-programmed on the flap of the door, and then it said, if you forget your code, do these steps to override the lock and re-enter the garage right there on the door, just like the Cheeto, username admin, password admin. So first and foremost, harden your perimeter. Then as you start to change your passwords on a known safe machine, I'm trying not to read my script here. You want to change these, but Americans are conditioned to tell the truth. Most people are. You want to lie online. You don't have to tell the truth to security password reset questions. It's okay to lie. So when you're creating a new question, where did your parents meet? Tatooine. What's your favorite thing to do? shoot womp rats. Favorite events, watching Star Wars 1 with Jar Jar. It doesn't matter what the answer is. They're just looking, here's a question. It has to be the same answer. Get something that you can't get from a little bit of OSINT research, you can't get from genealogy.com. Use something unique, and that's going to keep the bulk of domestic abusers from being able to reset your password and guess what your password could be. So as you're waiting on the locksmith, the apartment manager to come reset and rekey the locks, connect to your router, take a screenshot. I'm going to keep repeating that because that's the step of gathering evidence. As you're connecting to the router, look for unauthorized devices. So on this screen, you've got a Mac laptop, a PC, a Galaxy S8, and surprisingly, my iPhone's not on here. But you see that everything on this is known and listed. If you see something unusual, a camera, a listening device, or some people have repeaters attached, you want to see what else is there that you don't know about. Take a screenshot. Store that for later because that could be evidence. The standard legal disclaimer, I can't cover every possible router log location for the routers in production. Going through the router logs, some are going to be very granular and have this device entered at this date, this time. Most people name their devices Ray's iPhone, John's Android. So you can see if there's devices connecting to your network that shouldn't belong in that area, you're going to see something that doesn't fit right, that's out of the normal pattern. Again, copy the log, save it before you reset the device. So you've got your locksmith coming, you've reset your router password. The next thing you'll want to do is get your smartphone. And as you change your password, as the victim changes the password, we'll start with the iPhone first. I'm an iOS guy. We'll go to settings, and then we'll go from settings to the Apple ID, and you can see the different places that you're logged in. In my setup, I've got my iPhone named PC and my 2 Mac laptops. That's normal. That's what should be there for me. Most people who are getting dropped copies of iMessages use this feature. They add themselves to your account and they see what you're doing. They get dropped copies. It's right here if you know to look for it. Same thing, disable Find My iPhone, because right now you've got a Blue Force tracker in your hand where your abusive ex knows where you are at all times. So you'll want to go in, turn off Share My Location, turn off Set Up Family Sharing, so that copies of your notes, your photos, everything you've got on your phone isn't being shared with the ex, so you don't want to know what's happening with you. We've seen this with the troops where they're out overseas in Iraq. They'll take pictures of sensitive sites, and it shows back up in the family's iPhone, shared family photos of everything that's going on with them in the war zone. Applying that same operational security principle to the domestic front, you want to make sure these settings are turned off. This is where the most of the victims we've worked with, this is where the abuser is stalking them. Going down to messages on your iPhone. Looking here, you've got text messages forwarding to 2 devices. It's 2 Mac machines. Those are mine. That's good. That's normal for me. But you don't want to have these text messages forwarded to devices that you're not aware of. Your ex's device, his work device. Again, this is how the data starts to leak and you can mitigate the risk. One victim I worked with she had the messages going from her phone to her Mac laptop. That's good. And then it had 5 different iOS devices of his. That's how he knew she was always her complete pattern of life. Very simple to mitigate, but 5 minutes of time for you to turn this off for somebody who's asking for help, it's going to make a world of difference for the abuse victim. On the Android side, we'll go to recently used services, recently used devices, same thing, see where else you're logged in that you shouldn't be. Again, take screenshots. One thing I want to keep repeating, take screenshots and document this work as you go through it to show that my messages, her messages, his messages are showing up on devices they weren't authorized to. This will help you going forward legally. Then turn them off. Another thing, show of hands, yes, no, well, not virtual hands. Google Takeout, and this is key. It's a computer science group. You guys have heard of Google Takeout? To the chat column, yes, no? Silence. Google Takeout stores everything you've ever done. The current investigation I'm working on with Revolutionary Security is using Magnet Axiom to parse through the Google Takeout, and it's going through everything this group of users has ever done. That includes every time they've opened a file, every time they've had a chat history. You can't delete the Google Takeout from the Google service itself. It's always there. And once that data is downloaded by the abuser, it's gone for good. This is not something you want the adversary to have. So you want to make sure you definitely change your Google password, put two-factor authentication on your Google account. That way, that's the key to the kingdom. If you lose the Google Takeout data, same for the Apple Takeout, it's not as granular as Google, but losing that to the adversary is something you don't want to risk. You want to have this locked down as soon as possible. Another key thing here, easy win, but is on Facebook. Go to account settings, over to security account settings, active sessions, see where you're logged in. A lot of people forget that they've logged into Facebook on whatever account, and their data is still shared. We had a soldier in Petawawa, Canada. He forgot he was on holiday in Spain at a hostel 2 years ago. So when he came back from break, he noted that, I forgot I was there. I was still actively logged on to the shared computer in Spain. All my data was available if somebody knew what was there. And here's why that's key. Facebook Messenger stores every text message to, from, and your call history for at least a year, the granular details. T-Mobile, US Cellular, I think, AT&T, they only store 3 days of messages for who texted who. They don't store the granular data as to the body of the message. Facebook stores that, and if you have access to the Facebook account, you've now got the granular chat history, the text message history, just as if you had access to their iPhone or Android device itself. This is pretty key to have this locked down. So moving off the social media just a little bit, on the Mac side, talking about shared machines and the reason you want to change your passwords. On a Mac machine, if you go up to the search bar, type in keychain.app, and then scroll down. I used Infuse 2017 for the in-case conference. So I click on Infuse 2017. So this could be someone's Gmail password. It could be their Facebook password. This is a dummy account. Put in the username and password, which you need to know to access the account. And now you can see in clear text, the password to the Wi-Fi to the Gmail is right there. Password for the Infuse 2017 conference was guidance. So you're not James Bond, you're not Q. You just happen to know that keychain.app is going to give you the clear text password. When people say they are hacked, it wasn't so much they were hacked, they forgot to change their password after having it on a shared machine. Being persistent and thorough about not leaving devices behind if your person is the one leaving the bad situation, or if the abuser's left, look at the digital archaeology of what's been left behind. This fragment of a USB drive was given to me by a PI working a case. It's a recovered, deleted Facebook Messenger about making sure you're deleting the messages. Well, that was deleted, but when I ran disk drill through the USB drive just to see what I could find, because that's what I do, I found the deleted messages talking about making sure you delete messages from the PI who thought he deleted all the messages. Point being, take the devices with you. If you take a $12 USB drive out of the house versus leaving it behind so you don't make someone mad, the difference is your privacy versus what can be recovered. Talking about being persistent and thorough, the same neighbor who had the issue with the garage door having the password to bypass the code, she bought a 65-inch smart screen TV off Facebook Marketplace, used, too big to transport. The person she bought it from was still logged into Facebook, Netflix, Hulu, and Twitter, which is odd. Who wants to tweet from a 65-inch TV? Point being, she still had access to this person's sensitive data. She logged out being an attorney. However, being persistent and thorough to log out of all the old applications to cut the abuser off from having access before you leave the residence, or if they're taking it with them, to log yourself out or log out remotely, however you want to do it. But the peripheral devices, the Internet of Things, I hate that phrase, the devices that you connect to and forget about still are going to give someone a window back into what you're doing after the fact. Some things you can't help. I would say not to use Facebook. That's just me. There's some apps out there on osintframework.com, Facebook sleep stats. People can just use your cycles, with the right script from GitHub, and see by the number of times you post when you're active on Facebook, they can even establish your sleep cycle. So you have to think, if you're going through an abusive breakup, do you really need to even be on social media whatsoever? This data that you're not witting of leaking can still be used against you. Not a big celebrity fan, but the quote from Carrie Underwood is good about she's going here, she's wearing this. Her family's leaking out her data inadvertently. That's something else. If someone comes to you looking for assistance, you want to be cognizant. You can do the best job in the world, lock them out, give them a UV key, two-factor authentication, password managers. But if the family is still leaking out the personal information about what they're doing, our efforts are lost. This is something you have to be aware of. Getting into a little bit more of the NSA style stalker devices, the Ring doorbells. It's very simple to add somebody to your Ring doorbell access control list. People don't think to remove the guest, the X, from the Ring doorbell, and the audio video quality when I've worked with police on investigations is phenomenal. You wouldn't think these little devices have 1080p audio video, just the clarity is amazing. Yet if you don't remember, and that's a natural reaction going through a domestic abuse situation, if you don't remember to take the adversary off of this ACL, they're going to have that scope for the conversations as you're coming up to the door. In the South, people hold long conversations as they're leaving at the door. So now somebody can listen to you without your awareness because you're still on the ACL. This is something you want to scrub, just like if someone leaves a corporation, you scrub their access. Same principle. This is becoming more common, but the Amazon Alexa data is the same thing. There's a section on Amazon where you can go back and list any instance where Alexa thinks you may have said Alexa, and that records a conversation before and after the command you may have given Alexa. People can go back and listen to these snippets of data. So coupling the audio video at the door with a listening device in the house, this is something after the 1974 Church Act by Congress, this is something the CIA doesn't have power to do in the United States. But now through corporate America, through Ring and Alexa, your X now has the ability to listen to what's going on in your house after the fact. Very simple. Yet again, change your password, watch your ACL, but if you don't, this is the access somebody has. They have the ability, and it used to be a bad episode of CSI Cyber when that first came out, but they can remotely turn off the burglar alarm. They can remotely disable your smoke detector through your Alexa and manage your home security remotely, again, unless you wittingly remove them from the ACL. Financially, you want to remove them from the ACL on the Amazon Prime account. Either you start your own account or remove the person, because legally you're still authorized, you're still obligated to pay for the charges because you got implicit authorization for them to use your Amazon Prime account, charging whatever they want to your account. One, they can see your new address if you leave, but two, they can rack up your credit card, max it out, and you're obligated to pay it. So again, the same thing you're learning in corporate America, you want to scrub the ACLs, but again, on Amazon accounts. Switching over to printers, I like this party trick. Some of the printers will, the large corporate laser jet printers, you can walk over and just hit reprint all last print jobs and have a ream of paper for sensitive data. I was with Canadian Special Forces training them up at Petawawa, Canada. Walked in the classroom, didn't break any rules, didn't break any laws, just walked over, talked about the effort it takes to get there, the clearances, the qualification process for them to be in the room, hit reprint all last jobs, about 500 pages of previous print history came back up. Didn't touch it. Don't want to go to jail in Canada. But I said, anybody can come here and see the plans and intent of this unit because this wasn't disabled. Same thing, but on the personal front. On the Windows machines, you can go back and review potentially some PDFs, see what the files were, plans and intents for new bank accounts, relocation, apartment applications, new job applications. Or on the Mac side, if you go to en route var spool cups, it's on the bottom of the screen. Excuse me 1 second. What you're seeing is all the print jobs for a Mac Pro desktop. Everything that starts with C, you can get the metadata from. The files that start with D are recoverable PDF files. So for somebody leaving an abusive situation, leaving this behind, the abuser is going to be able to gather that 190 instances of metadata in one PDF. So looking at this and pulling the strings on one random file, you can see it's a coupon for world market. That's not a big deal. But the concept remains, it's still a large amount of metadata somebody could use against you. So it's probably better just to take that device with you, toss it, trash it, or if you're trying to figure out what the abuser had done to your person, that's a large amount of evidence you can use to assist him. It's offense and defense all in the same device. This is more of a, all this is meant for marketing. It didn't come out with malicious intent, but it can definitely be used maliciously. Are y'all familiar with Superhuman? Yes, no? It's a marketing tool that puts a 1x1 pixel, we've heard about this, on emails, and with that pixel, you can see the approximate location of where they're opening the emails. Yes, you can spoof this with a VPN if you're cognizant of this. You've got to have remote pixels enabled for them to use this against you and not use a VPN. But if you're not, just like a traditional user who's not InfoSec savvy, they're going to be able to see how many times you've opened the email, where you open it, triangulate your location. For example, I'm near Savannah, Georgia right now. If I was in a bad situation and I start opening emails in Savannah, someone who's close to me could ascertain that I'm now in Savannah at my mother's house instead of my residence in Charlotte, to figure out where I am if they wanted to do harm to me. Another company called Gmail, if you've heard of them, they've added this feature as well. They can see the number of times you've opened the email. Again, the VPN is going to defeat this, not letting remote images. But you take these two bits of stalkerware meant for marketing but maliciously used, combine that with DocSend for Outlook, which puts a beacon on the PDF. You can see how often they open the PDF, how long they spend per page, which sections they scan over. That's an amazing amount of business intelligence. You have corporate negotiations to see, I sent Ray this PDF, she's opened it 5 times, she's skipped these 3 sections where we've got this questionable clause. She's not worried about that. She's worried about the thing on the last page. Now we know what Ray's worried about. Same thing, but for domestic abuse litigation, divorce litigation. This is, I think, one bridge too far to track somebody online. The mitigation is simple. Like the Grug on Twitter says, use Tor, use Signal, use paper, use ink. The easiest way to mitigate this, hopefully there's a lot of Mac fans in the crowd, go to Terminal and Mac, type MDLS, metadata list, MDLS, drag and drop the PDF in there, hit enter, and if you see at the bottom where from forms, you're going to see the beacon. Other files won't have the beacon in there like these do. It's a very unique signature. We looked at this over at one of the NATO classrooms using the Windows machines to replicate it. We were not able to replicate the weaponized PDF location that you can do with a Mac. That's just the way it is. This is something I've been working on for a few months. If you hear of a way to defeat this with a Windows machine, tell Ray I'm curious to know myself. But again, if you or your person are in this situation, just print the document out. That's going to be the easiest way to defeat any beacons. So moving from the cyber world to the real world, there's a beautiful service from the post office called Informed Delivery. It provides, if you sign up with the right credentials, such as somebody who's going to leave a house, knowing they're going to leave the one who's been abused behind, they have the right credentials, the right driver's license, the right information. You can sign up to get this. Informed Delivery gives you a PDF or JPEG version of every piece of mail coming in. The reason that's so bad, thinking from a fraud examiner perspective, if I know a court summons is coming, or legal documentation, a check, bank statements, now all the packets are there. It's literal packet interception. If I know everything is there, I take the check out, I go cash it. You never know the check was in the mailbox because everything else was there. You weren't aware of it. The only two ways to mitigate this, I talked to the Postmaster General. Well, Postmaster General of Fort Mill, it doesn't sound that good. Fort Mill, South Carolina, it's a job. The way to mitigate this is either to sign up for Informed Delivery yourself to find out if it's already enabled on your PO box or your mailbox, or you go to the post office in person and ask if it's there. Beyond that, you would not know that someone's getting a drop copy of all of your images of mail coming in. That's alerting. They understand this could be a fraud risk. It's a small risk, but it's a huge risk if you don't know it's there for the right situation. If we start to wind down the cyber piece of this, I promise we're almost through the most painful. This is so painful to see all the ways you can be hacked inadvertently. Corporate programs like TripIt or Concur, where you forward your corporate travel plans. If you have a shared calendar with your ex, your child pickup, after school activities, unless you explicitly go and remove them from that shared calendar, they're going to keep getting the updates about the calendars, the events, things like TripIt, where you get your the graphics a little bit better here, where you can see your full travel itinerary, your flight, your seat, your confirmation number, your hotel confirmation number. I know when you're gone, how long you're going to be gone. So that puts your house at risk, your belongings. If I wanted to screw with somebody, you could call, cancel the hotel reservation, cancel the flight reservation if you're malicious, because you're still getting the drop copy. All you have to do is just forward your Delta reservation or whoever to plans@tripit.com, and it sends copies of your itinerary to everybody you've pre-authorized. So yet again, you need to scrub the access control list for this to make sure that you don't have unauthorized access to even this level of detail. Most people going through traumatic events don't consider all these factors. So when they come to us as professionals, these are things, it's a lot to remember. You'll have a copy of the presentation from Ray. This is something to keep on reference, just to remember. It's an easy thing to fix. This is a little bit fun, but it has a point. So Twitter GPS spoofing. This is, if you wanted to, you can alter your location on Twitter to project that you're somewhere else, which is great. It's like the Luke Skywalker Episode 8 trick from Star Wars. You know, I'm really somewhere else. I wasn't real in Belarus, then Hawaii, then Saudi. I wasn't there, you know, in 90 seconds of travel. I'm not Doctor Who. I don't have a TARDIS. That's obviously fake, right? In the back of the classroom over in Belgium, I was tweeting out from Iran, Moscow, Dar es Salaam, and you can see the time date stamps. It's not humanly possible to travel that quickly. But what is true, going to tinfoleak.com, looking down the bottom, is the vector attack you would use at me, knowing I'm on Twitter. And now it shows my device is an iPhone. That's going to vector into the, how would I hack Will's Twitter account? How would I hack Will's iPhone now that I know he's got an iPhone? So you may want to close your Twitter account. You may want to just close your social media because of what you're inadvertently leaking out through the metadata. This tinfoleak.com is a great website. So the GRUG says use Signal, use Tor. If you're not on Twitter following the GRUG, the GRU GQ, he's a KGB technical attaché. I can't talk tonight. Technical attaché based out of Bangkok, allegedly. Has a lot of good InfoSec knowledge. swift on security. She likes them. I would say assume your devices are compromised until you know for sure they're not. Things like a neighbor asked me, how can I spy on my kid's device when he's at his dad's house? So I just started looking into this. One, that's a hard no. That's a felony. Will's not going to jail for you, period. Will's not going to jail for anybody. So that's a hard no. So I looked at the different methods you would use to stalk someone's phone to see what's going on. MSpy gives two different vectors. On MSpy, you would have to click on a malicious link on the Android, it's going to load malware and you're going to be able to see what they're doing. On the Apple side, you would have to know their username and password to be able to get to that. And we'll get to that in a second. But just assume the devices are compromised until you know they're clean. The rules will be use personal meetings, leave your devices somewhere behind routine and secure. So if you leave your device at your house and you go meet someone at McDonald's, your device is still beating out that you're at home. If they're vectoring in on your mobile device, you have a clean meeting where you're not followed. Using nonverbal paroles with family members, excuse me, like it says here, if you wear a black hoodie every day, but if something's going on at home, you have a picture of a University of Pitt sweatshirt instead, that means something's going on with Will. Let's go by and visit him. It's a beacon that you haven't done anything differently other than what you've worn on Facebook that someone else knows means something. This is one of the easier ways if it's an iffy situation to say, I need help, but I can't broadcast that out. So MSpy, it advertises that you can monitor what's going on with family and friends, but getting into that with Operation Safe Escape, what MSpy really does, I'm not impressed with it. You provide them your username and password to MSpy. The device has to be backed up to the cloud every night. The device is then copied by MSpy and gives a report to whoever's stalking you. Altogether, now that the easiest way to mitigate this is to change your freaking password. This isn't hard to defeat if you know you can change it cleanly where your opposition won't know what's going on. So it's not really malware or stalkerware. It's just a matter of someone copying your data out of the cloud without your permission and monitoring the deltas from the previous backup. Again, changing your password will defeat this. Very simple. One of the things in pink, they're more the tradecraft, the things I want to call attention to, the things that you may not want to openly share. You might want to pull these slides out if you're discussing with somebody that you wouldn't want this to be known to the opposition if they read your slides. There's an app called Sleep Cycle. I still do a lot of travel. The Sleep Cycle uses the potentiometer on your phone. You start Sleep Cycle, you put it on the bed, and it measures how well you sleep based on the gyrometer and potentiometer on the phone to see how well you toss and turn or how much you toss and turn overnight. That's great, right? But using that with a different purpose, if you start Sleep Cycle, if you're in an iffy situation, put Sleep Cycle on your phone, lock your phone, and then you can see if your phone's been picked up or tampered with overnight because there's nothing happening at 3 a.m., there's activity. The cover story is, I'm just tracking my sleep to see how well I'm doing with this new mattress, or if I need a new mattress, what have you. The true data is someone is messing with my device at 3 a.m. Something's going on. I'm not safe here. And this is a very non-alerting way to see if your device, even put your phone with Sleep Cycle on your bag with your laptop and your personal information back on your go bag. That's one way to see if somebody's getting into your gear while you're out of the building. Another one, again, I love my Macs. I got tired of providing tech support for my family and for coworkers, so I moved as many people as I could over to Mac. So if you do Command-R, reboot your Mac in recovery mode, and go to Get Help Online, that runs off a different partition from your Mac than traditional, a regular boot. It's going to pull down the keychain.app so you can still log into the Wi-Fi network, what have you, but you're able to get online, go to OperationSafeEscape.org, signal for help if you need help, And this will bypass a keystroke logger that could be installed on the Mac itself. So far, this is what we're recommending to people to do who might need help. This is the easiest way to bypass the stalkerware spyware. So we'll close the door on the Windows devices, on the stalking device, and start to move down to the detecting physical surveillance and physical electronic surveillance in the house. So you found a device. Click here, hopefully this works. And by device, an actual camera installed in the house, something above and beyond just the ring. There we go. Standard issue SD charger, but this holds an SD card. You put the one-way mirror over it, you connect it, you plug it in. That's not me. So there's a lot we can learn from this. From the electronic surveillance devices, they have, again, the 3 out of 3. Is that a word? I don't know. You've got collection, power, and storage. So if you're collecting audio, video, high speed, just like the Ring doorbell, it needs full power. It needs to be wired into AC power. It's collecting everything, so the storage is going to be online or in the cloud. It's not going to have the capacity to store that amount of data unless you physically service it on a regular basis, like the SD card you saw itself that would come and go from the device. If it's collecting audio, it's going to be low power drive, so it won't need as much power. Audio on demand won't be as heavy on the processing, and you're going to have more storage. You see how the 3 interconnect together. So going down the list, all these beautiful devices are available from Amazon.com. Isn't that great, right? You don't have to go to CIE's DS&T and get a gadget. Go to Amazon, it's going to be here in 2 days. This is a 1080p audio video camera, connects to AC power, connects to Wi-Fi. So you're going to have that high resolution, high audio nanny cam broadcast out to the device. So it's going to be the tail of connected to the wall. And then you're going to see it on the router. Remember when I told you early in the presentation, you want to see the router devices, what's actually connected. This camera would show up as a device connected to your router. Take a screenshot of that, unplug the device, maybe call the authorities. That's a discretion call for you and your people. But this is an easy one to defeat. The air freshener, that's a 720p camera. It runs on battery, stores to an SD card. So it's going to be lower collection, lower resolution, and it has to be manually serviced. The black USB obviously isn't a black USB by itself. It's a audio collection device. You flip the switch one way if you can see the ridges. If you flip the switch up, it's continuous collection. If you flip the switch down, it's burst collection. It's good for 128 hours of on-demand audio. And if you're ever tasked to collect the audio from 128 hours of collection, that means you've pissed somebody off in your corporate management, in your CIA management. You've done something wrong because processing the tape for collection is miserable. You don't want to do that. But you see how these evolve. This still requires somebody to physically come in and collect the device and then process the tape. Which leads me down the path to, obviously, the nanny cam. We had a case coming out of Georgia where he knew her every move, what she was doing. Long story short, to condense it, he was obviously using a nanny cam to shoulder surf. The kids would take the nanny cam, they didn't know it was a nanny cam, behind mom's desk so he could watch her log in, get the keystrokes for that, get her passwords. She was also on a Mac, which is still shared with him before she moved out. So her iMessages and her Apple email were still shared with him on his device, so he was able to see what she was doing for 5 years. 5 years of attorney's fees and constant threats by him to remove the children from her. So innocent things like, I'm going out with the girls this weekend for a glass of wine, became, you abandon the kids with the babysitter to go out drinking. Simple, normal things with malicious intent with his proof. Long story short, we eventually ran a honeypot, had signed affidavit saying in this channel we're going to discuss this WebMD illness. On this channel, we're going to discuss this physical ailment. And on this channel, we're going to discuss this financial concern. None of these are real. When he produced the documents to her saying you need to surrender custody of your children based on this data from your attorney and your doctor, she was able to go to the police for wiretapping charges on him. And now she's living a generally stress-free life because the nanny cam and the shared password are a thing of the past. Again, change the password, that's key. But these electronic surveillance devices, they mean well. You want to watch out for somebody, his new parents, watching to see how the nanny handles your children. That's one thing, but in malicious hands, these can be a definite problem. This is an update to the slide deck. One of the dual threat malicious intent on the new AirPod with the, if you see the hearing aid icon on the lock screen, you can leave your device in the room, connect your earpods through Bluetooth to your iPhone, leave your phone in the room, be 15, 30 meters away and still listen to the device in the room because your iPhone's there. It's another threat to be aware of, to train people about that this could happen. Be cognizant. If the phone's in the room and they're not there with the earphones, watch what you're saying. Be careful. It's a new threat. Things to be aware of. Bluetooth is promiscuous. If you have net, I'll type this over here. Sorry. It's a smaller call, so Net Toolbox. I can't get to it. It's a $5 app on the iPhone. It's amazing. I used it at a hockey game in Canada just to show what this could do. I was able to, hockey match? I'm Southern, I don't know. But I picked up 1,100 Bluetooth devices around us near the goal for the Ottawa Senators. I was able to connect to one device, play Rick Ross over that, to show these NATO guys how insecure Bluetooth is. So if you have a Bluetooth listening device in the house, it's very easy to pick up because it's always broadcasting. Conversely, if you just go through the Bluetooth P list on a iPhone or a Mac, even the Windows, as much as I hate to admit it, you can see if there's any rogue devices in the area that shouldn't be there and submit that as evidence. So getting into a little bit of this to the tracking device, Amazon sells a tracking device, and I highlighted this because it kind of pisses me off. Perfect for tracking spouses. Pro tip, if you have to track your spouse, go ahead and call the attorney because the relationship's over. Things are not right. You see the actual, it looks like an old 2G, 3G style cellular antenna, smaller than a deck of cards. It would go under the car itself, connected magnetically in something that looks like a high-speed, low-drag Pelican case. So for $50, you get the beacon, $25 a month using the iPhone, you can monitor where they go. The only thing is you have to have physical access once every 3 weeks to change the batteries on this. Now that said, some family plans like T-Mobile will sync the car to the telemetry from the car audio infotainment system, so people with the family plans, the account holders, can see everywhere the car is going, what's happening with the car, how fast you're turning. All that data that would be collected by Burla.io is now provided to the account holder of the family plan. And I'll talk in the end of this on how a good way to get off the family plan, but that's one good reason you don't want to, because the cell phone itself becomes this beacon instead of subscribing to this. Now, all that said, here's a map of it. Looks like a beacon, right? So in a live presentation, look at you, I give you a dead stare and say, I lied to you. This isn't a beacon. This is GPS data pulled from an image of an iPhone from an app in Charlotte, and this is where the driver has been with the app. This isn't from a beacon. So even if you don't have a beacon on the car, if you're sharing your location services on any social media app, this is what you're broadcasting. So you want to be careful with how much you're sharing in this time during domestic abuse. The fitness beacons, it's a little blunt, stop it. If you're being stalked, you don't need to have your Fitbit. You don't need to have your Fitbit showing your running path, your jogging path, how far you ran, the date and time you ran. The world will be fine if you don't share this data. Just get rid of it. It's not functional if you're in a domestic abuse situation. You'll be fine not sharing this. Very simple. Here's where I look at you and say, all right, I get it. It's too much. I'm going to go order pizza. I'm going to get a beer. I get it, dude. I get it. When I was getting my DefCon talk ready, I got to that point, logged on to Domino's, horrible pizza. Yeah, I know. And then I looked down here and I saw my information, my address, my phone number. You can order through pizza. You can order through tweeting a pizza icon. And you can see the last 2 years of where you've tweeted out your last 2 years of where you ordered pizza. So if every Friday night you and your family order Domino's thin crust pepperoni, now your person has left the abuser, they've gone somewhere else. If you don't change something as simple as the DoorDash, the Domino's account, this is still another vector that your new location, something very sensitive, can be revealed unless you're persistent and thorough to change all of your passwords. All that said, that's control your environment, control your devices. Identity theft, and this is key because in domestic abuse situations, they have access to your sole documents, your driver's license, your passport, your birth certificate, your social security card, the things you need to open accounts. And with things like USAA, where you open everything online, all you need is copies of this to open the account in a fake signature, and now you've got an account you didn't know about. This is very simple. It's binary. If there's identity theft, you go to IdentityTheft.gov. If there's not identity theft, pull your credit report, have them pull their credit report, lock the credit. That way there can't be. So it's very simple. This is an easy one here. The fraud triangle, we're not going to deep dive into the certified fraud examiner track. It's a great one to pick up. It's an easy test compared to everything else. There's what's called a fraud triangle where they have the opportunity, there's pressure, and rationalization. For example, in York County, South Carolina, the attorneys will tell you the local DA is not going to prosecute fraud during a divorce, during a domestic split, because it looks bad. The husband's prosecuting the wife's prosecuting the husband, and the DA is enabling this. It's bad optics. Well, there's the gap. There's the opportunity. They're going to lose half of their income. They're going to lose the ability to pay half the rent. They can open an account in your name, open a fraudulent credit card, rationalization, well, I deserve it, I've supported them, whatever weasel words you want to put in there. Now that you've got the fraud triangle where identity theft could occur, and you have to catch it early. Even then, you've got things, and this is important, an app called Spoof Card, where if you spoof their attorney's phone number and get someone to call on their behalf, or spoof Bank of America, Citibank, what have you, it's going to show up on the victim's phone as Citibank or whoever they're using from that known phone number, because the last bit of information coming out from the MZ and SIM doesn't matter. It's what's presented are the fake digits. This is Mary from attorney so-and-so's office. We need to verify your new address. We need to verify your new social security card, what have you. It's very simple with these apps to fake a authority figure in these situations. The information's given over, and now you have identity theft. You're not even aware it's happened. So again, IdentityTheft.gov, go there. You're going to get an FTC number, a Federal Trade Commission number, or report number to work with a bank. So help you get the fraud closed and get the incident report. From there, they go to the local police, the authorities, the banks with the incident number, and they can work to get this closed. This, beyond helping them be aware of the identity theft and the resources available, this is a very simple one. It's either happened or it hasn't. If it hasn't, prevent it. If it has, report it. Very simple. Lastly, as we start to close this out, data availability. We covered control your environment, identity theft, data availability. So, you know, the corporate sector, intelligence sector, it's RAID systems for the machines itself, offsite backups. With this type of information, whether it's verbal transcripts, police reports, fraud transactions, if you don't document it when it occurs, it didn't happen. The CIA, we used to say, if it ain't in cable traffic, it ain't. Well, if it ain't documented, it ain't. Very simple. it's a hard thing to do to get a victim to document, I was abused on this date. Here's the video, here's the pictures, to go to the authorities. But if you don't report it when it happens, the legal system is going to assume that you were okay with what happened, you forgave them. Documenting files, this comes more from the e-discovery, the mobile forensic, the forensic side, more for the audience I'm speaking to. As you're working through them, if you're helping them, document everything as you come across it. I can't emphasize this strongly enough, where even with the case I'm working on my other laptops I'm pointing to that you can't see. This one case has close to 1 million files in there just on my side from the Google Takeout and Slack drives alone. We're having to mark it, explicitly name it, put it in the correct folders as we're going through it, or making offsite backups because this is the only instance we have this file documented. I don't want to go back through another 1 million files to find the one thing that was useful to help my victim because I was sloppy in my trade craft, because I was sloppy with my reporting. You can probably hear my voice. If I was in person, I'd kick the podium, hit the whatever. You have to be thorough in your documentation as you're doing your forensic analysis and your reporting, because good gosh, there's some files I still can't find from other cases I've looked for and I just can't find them. Another thing, be available for the other person. It's right there on the screen. I don't need to read my slides to you. Sorry about that. This isn't just some exercise to get your master's, to get your doctorate. They're coming to you with a situation. Check in on these people. If they're coming to you and saying, hey, this is going on, invite them out for pizza, go do things with them, be involved, be available. They're going through a hard time. It's not going to last, but they're going to need you there for this duration at least, because they're going through hell. They come to you for help. Why not? It's the right thing to do. Now, in terms of the data itself, so you've got a phone, you've got copies of the router logs, you've got copies of a USB drive that shows whatever. That's the only copy of the USB drive in the world that exists that can help your victim. You want to clone it, leave a copy. You want to follow the PACE plan. Leave a copy with an attorney, leave a copy in a safe deposit box, leave a copy offsite with parents, friends, what have you, and work off a copy of a copy, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency, because that, once you start copying the data, just like a backup plan for corporate America, you want to provide the same level of service as someone who's asking for your assistance, because drives fail, USB drives die, SSDs don't even give any indication they're going to die. You want to make sure you have a backup plan because they've trusted you for help. You're now on the extra, assist them, be a professional, make sure you've done exactly like you would for corporate America, for the intelligence community, for law enforcement, what have you. For this victim, they're trusting you to get this right. 2 is 1, 1 is done. Even if you only make a primary and a backup and leave the backup with the attorney, you're still better than working on the one drive and hoping that $12.99 USB drive from Wawa is not going to break. Those aren't good odds. So wrapping this up, we talked about the family plan, and to tie this together, we had a thing, CIA, running human operations, the 4 Fs, firm, friendly, final, and fair. When it comes time to end a human source, whether it's because they've lost access, the country's no longer interested in that program, we've achieved our end goal, communism has fallen in Eastern Europe, we've won the war, what have you, at some point every human source is going to come to an end. And the way we terminate relationships is firm, friendly, final, and fair. Bob, you've done a great job working for us over the years. The information has been key. You provide a great service to your country, to your family. The president sends his thanks. Thank you so much for what you've done. We'll need to get your laptop back that you've used working for us, forensic analysis, and we'll give you this new laptop that's brand new, it's state of the art. This one's getting a little bit old. We'll give you the best of the best. Here's a departure bonus of 10 times your normal salary, what have you. It's firm. It's over. There's no window that you're going back. It's friendly. You're leaving on good terms. They know it's over, and they leave feeling like they've done something good. Tying it back to this, as horrific as domestic abuse is, if you say, I want off this cell phone plan because you're tracking where I go, well, that's going to make the adversary even angrier. But if you said, things are getting a little rough between us, I've got a new cell phone plan that's going to save you money. It's a better plan. Work is making me have this, and you don't have to pay the extra $100 per month for me. That's $1,200 a year. And after you deduct or figure in taxes, that's a $2,000 a year savings for you. Well, you've already switched over to the new plan. You present it in a way that sounds good regardless of the motive. And they're off the X. They're away from being monitored, from being stalked digitally. And it's a way that they're not aware of the ulterior motive. So that's something to keep in mind. Plus, with us being computer science engineers, majors, what have you, your involvement in this, they're going to look at you with an extra scrutiny that you're wearing the black hoodie, that you're the hacker, like an Edward Snowden type, whatever. But you have to make sure you're doing things legally, because anything you do is going to be scrutinized by the opposition. So you have to be above board for this. A couple of things to leave you with. Shared devices in a domestic conflict. R2-D2, strong encryption, strong authentication. Nothing got through that. We had 9 movies with him in there. C-3PO, weak encryption. The device was wiped so that during the change of hands in a domestic conflict, his previous data wasn't accessible. Looking for unauthorized devices on a network. So Nebula 2023 Nebula shows up in 2014 Thanos network. There's 2 devices, one's unauthorized. He performed a live memory analysis, similar to like a Google takeout analysis. He saw her locations, her chats, her images, everything she's done, because an unauthorized device appeared on his network. Conversely, the Avengers, like a Apple-style cloning of the device, all their chats and locations were given away to the adversary because he got a drop copy of what was happening. So you have the offense and the defense, depending on which side. Some people say Thanos was right. They're sitting in rush hour traffic in Philadelphia. So you have the offense and the defense here, but things to remember how domestic conflict and technology has played a part in a lot of movies. The too long didn't read version, change your passwords, change your locks, got to report things to law enforcement, and you have to document events. That's it. I ran a little bit over. So any questions, comments, concerns? Are you still there?
That was great. Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Okay.
Oh, there's a question in the chat. How do you take this information, try to change a culture that has a history of physical abuse in the culture?
I know y'all know Rose. I've only met her recently. At her ShmooCon talk, she used the example of the little boy throwing the starfish back into the ocean. The old man says, you can't save them all. And he says, I can't save them all, but I can save this one. That's how you have to look. I can't change the culture, but I can help the one person directly in my worldview that's right here. And that's about all you can do, is just the one person who comes to help, or the 2 people. You can't change the world. Good question, though. Anyone else? Or if y'all have an email, I'll be happy to email these slides if you want them to be share out and use as you need. It's not, it's a heavy topic, man. I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, I'll send you my email.
Okay. And another thing, just for the group, mail.com. I'll type it there. You can open like 200 different email address extensions. Got it. And that's where I got engineer.com. So when you're job hunting, it's not just Gmail or Hotmail. Engineer.com is going to stand out a little bit more than just a Hotmail or Gmail or what have you. Any other questions?
How do we get involved?
Go back to the first page here. Uh, All right. If you want to get involved, go to help@safeescape.org and just say you heard the talk, you know Ray, and we always need more help. There's more people coming in than we can possibly deal with at once.
All right. Are there any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, Will, for coming out. Thank you for the wonderful talk. We're always looking for, ways to, one, increase our skills, two, develop professionally, and then three, how can we give back? So this captures all three of those right there.
Thank you. And last thing is a corporate shill over Bluebell. Revolutionary Security is hiring massively right now for computer engineering. So people who are looking for work, hit me at 10x@engineer.com, and I'll be happy to share these vacancies because it's not far down the road from you. They pay very well. It's a good corporation.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.